Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Jesse, Karen, Lou Media Podcast, or as we like to call it for short, the JKLM Media Podcast. And this time, it's my pick for what we're going to discuss. And I've chosen, I'm going to be curious to Jesse and Karen as this goes along, that they're going to be how surprised they are that I actually ended up picking up this series, is The English, which stars Emily Blunt and Chasky Spencer, and it's set in the 1890s or 1900s, and it's a very interesting series that I'm got a lot of vibes of spaghetti westerns in the vein of Sergio Leone and The Man with No Name. The opening credits are, to me, a direct homage to that type of western, but the setting of the show is used to tell a very different story, and I'm very curious to hear what Karen and Jesse have thought of the first two episodes that we've seen so far. So, without getting into specifics, Karen, what are your general impressions of the show so far?
It's very lyrical. I like the cadence of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I feel like is probably true from that era, although I'm assuming that they're romanticizing it a little more. I do feel like, we say right now that things are like the wild, wild west, when things are out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's this whole show is, literally the wild, wild west. And it was, well, first of all, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like seeing the seedy underbelly of what people were like back then, that everyone had a ulterior motive and all that, is refreshing. Mm-hmm. So I'm in 100%. I love it.
Very good. Jesse.
Yeah, I really loved this first episode. When we first talked about doing this, I had watched the first one just to see if this was something, we had kind of thrown it out there. And so this past week I watched episode 1 and episode 2 together. I have enjoyed this. There is a sense of dread watching this, that you never feel that our main characters are safe.
Mm-hmm.
There is such a sense of unease watching this, and it is an unsettling experience for me watching it, but it's something I've really enjoyed, and I have been impressed with the cast
Mm-hmm.
of the supporting characters. That you think of characters that would, these will be there the whole time, and no, they've been one-offs.
Yep. Very good. So we're going to discuss the first two episodes, as I mentioned off the top. And the first episode has a very Rolling Stones kind of title to it. What you need, what you want, and what you need. And we find out the difference between the two is what you can carry on a horse, which I thought was quite apropos for the environment that they're going in. But what this episode really does is it sets up our two protagonists. And we have the character played by Emily Blunt, who is Cornelia Locke, Lady Cornelia Locke. And she is an Englishwoman who is hell-bent on revenge. And we find out exactly what that revenge is as the episode goes on. And the other one is a retired Pawnee scout called by the name of Eli Whipp. He has many names, but that's sort of the name that he goes by with the white people that he meets in this episode. And it's his perspective on white people, the English, that gives the title to the series, which is interesting as well. So what we're doing here is we're setting up two characters, and I think it's safe to say that both of these characters in certain aspects are outsiders in their own world. So why don't we talk about Emily Blunt first, and Lady Cornelia. And at this point, her backstory is not as fleshed out as Eli Whipp, so I find it more interesting to talk about her first. And beyond the fact that I just think Emily Blunt is just killing it in every scene that she's in. So, Jesse, why don't you tell us what you think of Cornelia Locke?
I really like Emily Blunt. She was wonderful in The Devil Knows Prada. She was wonderful in that Tom Cruise Edge of Tomorrow, playing the action lead. That I know a lot. That's a really bad title for that movie, but it was a very well done science fiction story. So I go into this liking her as an actress, and I think she is very good at this. She is strong-willed, a little naive. I think she doesn't understand. One of my favorite lines, Penn Jillette talked about, he never wants to go to any place where having money doesn't matter. He told the story about they were going to do ants. They were going to go get some ants for some kind of magic trick, and so they were in the woods, and he was miserable. And he says, I never want to go to a place where having money doesn't matter, right? Because in the middle of the woods, no one cares if you have money or not. And so she is not naive, I think, a little bit, going, I have this satchel full of money. It's going to help me. And she keeps getting into trouble because of that. I also then go back to, well, it isn't like she can carry a credit card at this point. I remember the really well done last year, the BBC and PBS had Around the World in 80 Days with David Tennant. And, the idea of they had to wire money to him. So, yeah, I think she is very smart, very driven, and just a little naive, which makes this a wonderful combination of her and the male lead.
Karen?
Yeah, she's naive in a very dangerous way. And that gives the show a lot of tension. The fact that she goes to this place that's like this hotel that's absurd. It's out in the middle of nowhere, literally nowhere, Kansas. And she thinks that she's going there as a stop on her way for vengeance. And really, they just wanted to steal everything she had and kill her. So, and worse. And I know it seems like killing can't be usurped by anything, but there are things that are worse. So, they kind of play that for comedy, but there is that desperateness underneath it that she knows she's going to die and things are going to happen to her. But she also is, I don't know, she believes in this higher power that is guiding her, magic. And so I think there's part of her that is thinking, I'm going to get out of this because I have this need for vengeance. And like you said, Jesse, Emily Blunt is amazing in anything. A Quiet Place. And, I loved her in A Devil Wears Prada. I also think that she is a good person. As people know, she's married to John Krasinski, and they are both very down to earth and kind. They did this kind of, good news podcasty thing during the first part of the pandemic. So she seems like a really nice person too. So it makes me feel good to watch her in this, because she's a good actress and a good person. And it's nice to see that something that she created, because she is one of the executive producers of the show. It's good, just, solid. And like I said before, it has kind of a cadence to it. And she's part of that. She she would be the soprano part of the song. She's the upper register, the very the main lyric in the whole story, above everyone else. She's this lady. Her father comes from nobility, and he was wronged, and so they gave him this duchy, and he is someone that has had an impact on her, and so that translates to her seeing Eli as an equal where other people wouldn't. So she has this kind of, people that are wronged, I'm there. So I love that whole relationship between the two of them, and her trying to draw him out and him just not going with it. He's the monosyllabic kind of person. And I really adored their relationship. Emily is great in this. Cornelia Locke is, even in just the first episode, fully rounded. Even though we don't know exactly what happened to her son yet, we can see it was bad. And, she does mention to Eli, it was short and long. He was killed in a very bad way, and he also lingered. So we know that there's something going on with that. I really enjoyed watching her in these first two episodes, and I'm assuming it's only going to get better from here.
Okay, so now let's turn to Eli Whipp, the Pawnee scout, and it's quickly established that he's also an outsider, and it's, if nothing else, just a visual of him in the Army uniform is enough to make us realize that. So, Jesse, what did you think of Chasky Spencer and his portrayal of Eli Whipp?
I think this is an interesting character, right? Because he is sitting there having to live between two worlds. There was not a great sitcom a couple of years ago about a Afghan translator that comes to the U.S. and lives in, with the Marine that he was working with, Al, I can't remember now. But they did discuss that in a lot of ways, the U.S. needed scouts, but the Afghan people, not all of them supported that they were doing this. So I thought of that he was a U.S. scout. He seemed to be respected by some of the military that we see, but others not. I think that he will be considered that idea of a second-class citizen. I love the quiet, and I did not think of the Clint Eastwood movies till you mentioned him, Lou, but now that you do, it's all over the place. Right? I can't unsee that, including the credits.
Yep.
The quiet, strong, supporting man or leading man that has a code of conduct and is doing what it has to do. Once again, I've talked about this a lot, especially at this time of year, right? I'm a sucker for Hallmark, Christmas movies. And, the premise is we have a trope is there is a well-to-do female lead ends up being tied by a male lead through circumstances they don't necessarily want to be there together. They go on a road trip, and by the end, they're in love. Don't know if we're going to end up with people in love, but you have this very trope set in the West. Makes it interesting. So I like him a lot. I did love that line where they said that, the difference between what you need and what you want and what you need is what you can carry in a horse. I think that's an oversimplification, but I also could see that, right? It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, great character. I was really happy to see him in there and what they're doing with him.
One of the tropes is road trip, that they're stuck in a car together.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I like to think this is kind of that trope.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Karen.
Chasky Spencer, someone I had never seen before in anything. Although I see that he's been in some really lauded vehicles in the past. I loved him in this. You can't help but like him. But you see that he is in those two worlds. He is a Native American, and he was in the army in the 1800s. So we see that he is looked up to in that first scene where we see him up on the ridge, and he says, "Not today," and the guy drops his arms and says, "Okay, I'll obey what you say." But also, he's told, well, the color of your skin, you're not going to get that army benefit. So he's loved and hated all at the same time. I mean, we know that's the history of America, is how we treated Native Americans. And I feel like he is the epitome of that kind of straddling two worlds thing. And also one of those people that he gets across what he means in 2 words. I mean, it's just, he doesn't talk very much, but he tells you what he means. And so he would be the baritone in the song, he would be the not quite bass, but he's definitely that baritone, strong, underlying, holding everything together kind of piece of the orchestra, choir, whatever. So I really do like his character. I can't wait to see. We know he's going to be back with her, even though she kind of parts ways with him at the end of the 2nd episode. Because we see that in the preview things, but I can't wait to see what he evolves into because of her. I have a feeling it's going to be big. Right. So I'm crossing my fingers his character turns into something completely different. Although I like this part of his character. Okay,
very cool. So there's also what I believe is a 3rd character in this show that continues through the series, and that's the setting, the environment, the landscape. There's just endless shots of the sun setting and rising, the fields, the mountainous areas, and that. And I just think and I believe this was shot in Spain, so it's standing in for Kansas and so forth. I do like the fact that Emily Blunt's character lands in Kansas, or starts her journey in Kansas. There's a very obvious Wizard of Oz reference there for me, but the town, the hotel, is all a standalone structure in the middle of nowhere. So it's it's a very harsh environment, and I think it's very important that this environment sets up the context of your priorities, which is where what you need and what you want is all what you can carry on a horse, is what this environment is all about. And we don't have to delve on it a lot, but I do think that the setting plays a big part in the show. And I'm just curious how are you feeling about that, Karen?
You say harsh, and yes, but it's also beautiful. You see that harshness sometimes with scrub lands and like the hotel out in the middle of nowhere kind of vibe. There are places where it looks just uninhabitable. And then you see them up on a ridge looking over the the windmill, the water
Yep.
windmill, where the other Native Americans have a little settlement. And, you know, we see the sun setting and it's just gorgeous. It's 1,000 colors on the horizon. And to me, I feel like that kind of epitomizes America in those times, that there was environments that were just so harsh that people couldn't get through them. That's a difficulty. But there's also those moments of grandness, of just heart-stopping, beautiful landscapes. So I'll tell you a little something. I'm from Salinas, as you guys know, Salinas, California, and that's where John Steinbeck settled. And so we read a lot of John Steinbeck growing up, because that's, you know, our library was named the John Steinbeck Library. It was a big part of like the school curriculum and everything. And this really does remind me of that Dust Bowl, kind of, you know, Grapes of Wrath kind of setting. And it seems to me real. So, and there's no part of America that looks like that anymore. No wonder they had to go to Spain, because they would just have to use the same thing over and over. There's like nothing like that anymore. So I loved it. You mentioned Deadwood earlier, and I feel like this is Deadwood times 1,000 as far as the setting goes. We don't see much of the surrounds of Deadwood, but we do see that kind of gritty, uninhabitable kind of, you know, we're making this into something, but there's nothing here. So just very good. I'm sorry for going on about it.
Oh, that's cool. Jesse, any thoughts on the environment of the show?
Yeah, so I did not grow up doing this, but as a young guy, I found John Ford and his Westerns, and they are truly some of my favorite films. The original Stagecoach, if you've never watched, you will go, wow, this is filled with tropes, but it is one of the first uses of tropes, where there's the drunk and there's the a lady, and the, you know, it is really, really one of my favorite films. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, just all these John Ford films are amazing. And he would use the canvas of that place in America. And so I love the idea of using that landscape. I did not know it was not filmed in the US. It felt like it. It makes sense. Often things are filmed in Europe or in Canada for money reasons. But it is there, and it is the environment that this is a dangerous place. This is a untamed place, is absolutely beautiful. I'm not watching it on my computer. I'm watching it via the Fire Stick on my big screen, and it is absolutely beautiful. So I do agree that the character, the environment, not only the scenery, but the atmosphere, the idea that this is not a safe place. As I talked about it earlier, I worry about my characters constantly, even when they sit down with the farmers. You know, I kept thinking, okay, they're going to get betrayed. They're going to be betrayed. And I think that is the feeling the filmmaker wants us to know, that almost no one can be trusted. And it is really, really well done.
Cool.
The Grapes of Wrath was a John Ford movie. So, and I think that would kind of epitomize that link between John Ford and this type of show. So
absolutely.
So one of the difficulties and when you're hosting one of these segments is that you want to steer the conversation in certain directions, but you don't also want to give spoilers. But I think in this case, what I'm going to say is I don't think it's going to be a surprise to either of you, and I'm sure you've both picked up on it, knowing your sensibilities. But one of the attractions of the series to me is the dialogue, because there's so much subtext going on. They're saying one thing, but underneath there's this whole totally different thread that's going on, and I'm just really curious to see how you guys felt about that. And I think I'll pick on you first, Jesse. What did you notice this, or is this something that has just come to you?
I agree with you, because the whole, she is quick to say, "Well, I can pay." You're like, "Oh, shh," and the whole. There's the wonderful scene in the second episode. There's actually several scenes, but I'm going to think of we assume the rancher, whoever that is, could be, he feels like might be one of the big bads. I don't know yet, but he gives that vibe, talking to the sheriff with the great Stephen Ray, and the subtext back and forth, right? That there's this whole underlying, like, I'm rich, I'm powerful, I could destroy you if I need to. And the sheriff is, "Look, I've been elected by the town. I know you're powerful, but I've got to do what's right for the town. And what's right for the town is not necessarily what's right for you." So I do agree this, when they find the baby and the child, right? It's the right thing to do to take care of him, but he actually feels the undercurrent of, like, I just want to get home.
Yeah.
These are all distractions, and I'm going to do the right thing, but that doesn't make me happy about it. So often you'll hear actors, John Spencer, I think, is a great example in West Wing, that, he played Leo, and often some of Leo's best lines were saying, "Thank you, Mr. President," with this great, grace and depth that, so many things could be said with a sigh or a look. And so this is very much that kind of depth. I agree with you, Lou.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, did you watch this with captions on?
No.
Okay. I do. I watch almost everything with captions on.
So do I.
I feel like it kind of allows me to see exactly what they're saying, but also watch their, I can see it.
Yeah. In their performance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that scene between Watts and Cornelia, where they're having quote unquote dinner with the oysters. Which if you guys don't know, they are testicles.
Yep.
I'm not sure that was actually mentioned. If you're not 100% sure,
no, it wasn't.
No, they left it for you to yeah,
research.
and yeah, exactly, but yes,
but yeah, if you know what,
and they are considered a delicacy.
I know.
I've never had
still
them.
Disgusting. I will never have them ever. I've had rattlesnake, but I'm not going to go as far as having prairie oysters.
And I've had gator. I've had alligator, and alligator is very good, the tail. But yes, I get you.
Snake is not as good.
Yeah,
I can say that right now.
I've had horse.
Have you?
Yes.
Interesting.
There was a beef shortage, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. And so we had to try some other stuff, and there was horse meat. And it's very lean. Very
Buffalo
lean,
is also
actually.
very good. Buffalo is amazing. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yep.
So Watts and Cornelia have that conversation. And while there is that sinister undertone to it, he's very jovial and very flowery in his wording. And I actually rolled it back, and I watched it once. I watched their faces, and then I rolled it back and I read all the captions without having to see their faces and everything. And the way he talks is really, I say flowery, I mean it. He's very descriptive, and he's verbose. He not only says what he means, he talks it out. And she is direct to him. She's naive, but very direct. And she says many less words, but you get what she says as well. And I feel like that scene kind of epitomizes that, the language they use. But everybody uses that flowery language. Even the dumbest of the dumb use flowery language back then, because that's how they talked. We were evolving as a language. And, you know, the driver of the stagecoach is kind of an idiot.
Toby Jones.
Yeah, but he also uses that very flowery, you know, lengthening of descriptions. He uses that kind of thing. And it's such a dichotomy to the two main characters who, while Cornelia talks a lot, she doesn't use that kind of language. You know, she's from England, where they are concise and proper. And then we have Eli, he doesn't use hardly any words. So there's that whole, you know, it really emphasizes the difference between those two, I guess, you know, races, where they come from. And then the Wild West kind of, you know, we're using new language. We're experimenting with who we are as Americans. And it's really interesting to see that dichotomy. And especially with Cornelia, who is just a jibber jabber. She loves to talk. She is disconcerted by Eli's lack of conversation. But there is a difference, that she talks a lot, but she says it in very smaller sentences than the Americans. And it's super fun to listen to.
Yeah, I at some points in the episode, I thought that, boy, she's really living up to her last name, Blunt, because when she asked the Richard Watts, who's played by is it Syrian, I think, Hines, who is just fantastic at the dinner table. He says, "Are you going to rape me?" And you know, he has some flowery response, and she says, "Yeah, I'd rather you'd fuck a horse." I thought that was hilarious. so good. She's got that bluntness to her. It's unbelievable.
He references that too, where he says, "I hope you come back as my horse."
Yeah,
you know, meaning
if you
want me to fuck my horse, I hope you come back as my horse.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then of course the dialogue between Cornelia and Eli, when they're talking about that, she's pleading with him to take her with him, and she's got like that whole porch is full of all her luggage and everything, and he says, "Well, you're going to take what you need," and she says, "Well, I need it all."
Yeah.
But in essence, she finds out that she doesn't. I thought that was really good. The other scene, like where the double dialogue was working quite well, was with Toby Jones and Eli, when they're on the stagecoach and they were waiting for those three horsemen to catch up with them. I just you know, like that, all how they broke down. Like, he didn't try to outrun them. He just stopped, and you know, he kind of equivocated about whether or not to take Eli out of the handcuffs, and he finally did. And then when he's shot, and he brings up the name of somebody that from his past, we assume, and he says, "Why did I think of that?" And then he says, sometimes it's just to let memories lie, which is foreshadowing. So hang a key on that. And yeah, so I just think like the supporting characters, the main ones, Syrian Hines and Toby Jones, were just as fantastic as well. And if you got anything on that, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, they are so interesting. Every character in this so far has been really riveting to watch.
Jesse?
Yeah, like I said, you would have. Both of those are really well-known actors and really good characters, and you don't know the stagecoach driver, right? Does he mean it when he says, "Well, I didn't know who you were"? You know, would he have not let him uncuffed? You know,
Mhm.
I just don't know. And it is, and I do it's interesting, right? He gives the character, a gun. You know, so he could shoot himself, so he doesn't have to die in a painful death. Then, of
Right.
course, what I think is like, did he get the did he go back and get the handgun again? Because he may need that later.
Yeah.
It is very, it's a violent world,
Hmm.
and they're not shying away from that.
Yeah.
This is,
Which is
and
totally illustrated between the conversation between Cornelia and Whip when she's pleading with him to go with her, and she makes all this impassioned speech about her
yeah,
what happened to her son, and then he just comes back and says, "I've lost my grandfather, my father, my wife, my daughter." Says
yeah,
this land is harsh, and like says, "How long have you been here? 4 days or 2 days? And how many people have you seen killed? Four." And it's just
yeah,
like, yeah, this is the place that you're in now. It's not like you're not back in London, England. So yeah.
yeah. It is, and that's why I said there's this sense of there is an there is an unease, like the
Hmm.
scene with the I guess the Dutch, the settler
Yep.
that isn't speaking English, and and he's trying to convince, my wife's pregnant, you need to take care of me, and like, oh, and then you have the unrealistic where they kill him with the arrow, which of course a man drawn probably could not go through the chest. I did keep wanting to go like on the in-laws, serpentine,
Serpentine, yeah.
yes, duck and weave. Just
Brilliant scene.
yeah, it is. This is just um such a there has been a lot of nuance performances on this.
Hmm.
And it is a slow story, yet it's moving,
Hmm.
right? Like sometimes you'll go, the pacing's all wrong. This is like Brent, our friend Brent, right? We'll
Hmm.
talk a lot about pacing is, like, come on, get to the story. This, is a leisurely story that they're telling. And I'm enjoying that journey.
Hmm. I think it depends on your ability to enjoy subtext as opposed to having things spelled out for you, because there's so much going underneath the surface on these episodes that I just am totally in love with, and and all the other things that I've mentioned, the acting, the look. It's just a really beautifully done show, and I'm expecting to. I'm curious to see what your reactions are going to be by the time we get to the end of it, because it's setting itself up in a certain way, but it's warning you that this is a rough place. So, if you're expecting like a certain ending, you might not get what you want. You just might get what you need. And I think that's exactly what this series does. So that covers the first episode. And then the next episode is The Path of the Dead. And as we've learned from the first episode, Cornelia's out here to avenge the death of her son, basically, and that takes as she wants to get to a certain place in the States where she believes the father of her child is. And
Did you just spoil that?
No.
I didn't know he was the father.
Yes, she was. That's why she's going to him, right? Why would she go to somebody that has no relationship to her and her son?
That he killed her son. Like he was responsible for the death of her son.
Okay.
But that's all right. It's okay. I'm okay with knowing that.
Okay. If that wasn't brought up, then I apologize, but
that's all right.
It's not going to really change anything for you, so I wouldn't fuss it too much.
Okay.
The other thing that kind of carries over from the first episode is we're presented with this character of Emily Blunt's as she's like a upper class English. She's a lady in title, but what we're seeing so far from her is she doesn't act like she's a lady, and there must be a reason for that, and we can insinuate or intuit that it's from what's happened to her son. but how bad must that have been? Because there are certain things that she's done. Uh, like in the first episode, were you shocked what she did with the horse and the guy being hung? You thought that
No.
was in character for her, or
Well, we didn't know her character very well, but I think I was expecting it a little bit because of how they treated her. Just it was a reaction, and we already knew she was coming for vengeance, so she had that in her. I think she was surprised when she did that, but I think it didn't shock me 100%.
her reaction was good.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that but at the same time, it seemed that she is quickly becoming, and I may be oversimplifying, but she's understanding a little bit of how violent this is. And instead of going, oh no, this isn't fair, we can't do this. I mean, she realizes they were going to rob her, rape her, and kill her, and not necessarily in that order. So therefore, they were not showing any mercy to her. Why should she show mercy to them? And it was an interesting scene because he just didn't kill him right out. Right? He said, well, let's see, have you been giving your horse enough water? Have you doing that? It is a violent world that we're in there, and I think they keep, and I don't know if we're going to get tired of them sometimes okay, I get it, this is a violent world, let it go. But I feel like the way this story is going, that's going to be an underlying topic and a theme that we're going to continue to see.
Yeah, I think they make it real enough that it's not something I'm tired of.
Yeah, and there is no safety net. There is no, even the sheriff that we met doesn't seem to have that much power. There is not well, if I could just get to civilization, I'll be okay. This part of the early, West, there is no civilization.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is important to pick up on that scene is, in a show that's often very loquacious about its responses to other character statements, when she does that, I just love Eli Whipp's reaction. He just goes, huh. I thought that was, in an episode where people are doing a lot of talking, he just says, huh. And I guess you could say that's kind of like his Clint Eastwood moment, I guess, in a way.
But we still get exactly what he means. Yeah.
So he was surprised, and that was good to see. So in the Path of the Dead, where we have the scenes with the Mennonites, and there's another group of 3 renegades, and they again have this big conversation, which is kind of hampered because the Mennonite only speaks German. But again, there's subtext going on in there as well, and we see that the Indian shoots a guy in a manner that's unrealistic, because there's no way an arrow could fly that far and go through a person like that. But it's a cool shot, so you just kind of go with it. And Eli and Cornelia come upon that wagon, and it's a good scene in the respect that we get to know the character of these 3 guys that could just be any, bad, your typical bad guys. But because of the way the episode is structured, when we run into them again, we know what Eli and Cornelia are facing. So and Jesse, because you just mentioned that you're getting maybe a little leery of all the violence that's in this series, how did this part of that episode play out for you?
Well, I'm not weary of it. I guess I'm just I am feared. I am afraid for I'm afraid for our main characters. That they never seem safe. The idea, like I said, even the the settlers that are feeding them. I keep thinking, are they going to end up poisoning them? Are they going to try to rob them? And so this is the world that we're in. This is the world they want to tell. And this is, if we go back to our trope of a road trip, running out of gas, hitting a snowstorm, ending up you missed the bus or whatever your reason, their obstacles are people who want to kill them and take her money. They either want to kill him because he is a Native American, and they want to kill her because she is rich.
And beautiful.
And beautiful, yes. And she does. I do say the costuming looks really good on this.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes across really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
I love how her costuming is gradually changing to fit the role that she's in.
Mm-hmm. She's adaptable.
Right. Her dress is, it's not big anymore. She's pulled it up on one side and is kind of, wearing quote unquote pants. Not really yet, but she's becoming more and more, she just doesn't care anymore how she looks, because she has to get to this place. She's with this man who is very pragmatic, very he doesn't have any airs at all about him. He knows what his life is. So she is very slowly kind of evolving, where she had all those thoughts in her head before. Now she is putting them to use. She is using her skills of shooting, shooting an arrow, shooting a gun, surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that, she's turned that, instead of shooting skeet, she's turned to being able to defend herself. I liked these three bandits, not liked, but
yes,
I liked the concept of them. You knew it was coming down Main Street. They were going to kill that Mennonite. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of ransacked his goods and all that. They took what they wanted, but left the woman in there alive. They didn't care about her, knowing that she was going to die because she's out there alone. They just didn't care about anyone but themselves. Then they come upon Eli and Cornelia, and there's this huge amount of tension in the story where you see, he knows of Eli. He reveres him as like a soldier in the army, and the tracking and the accolades he's gotten. But he's also Native American. The color of his skin is something to hate. So while he reveres him, he's not going to have any compunction about killing him, killing her. What's in her bags? We'll find out. We're going to kill you guys and take your stuff. But there's that moment of, we've heard stories about you, and we kind of love the place that you've taken on our side, but now you're the enemy. And the fact that we see how terrible they are, killing that Mennonite and leaving everything, we've seen all that. So we don't sympathize with them at all when they show up.
Do we know why they killed the Mennonite? I was a little
to take all his stuff.
Just to rob. Okay.
They're just bushwhackers. That's all they do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another word for bandits, essentially.
Okay.
That the settlers aren't safe around them at all.
Yeah.
If you're coming across the country and you're alone, that's why they did caravans, because there were these roving bandits. And this way, when they're in caravans, they outnumber them. The bandits don't even attempt to do anything.
Right.
So, this poor guy, you just can't help but feel bad for him. He thinks he's going to survive, that they're letting him go. But we know he's not going to. And yeah, that is unrealistic that the guy shot all the way through the dude's body, but it made a point that, you know, they overpowered this one guy, that's how much they overpowered him. And so we don't care when Eli and Cornelia kill him. We don't care. We're happy. You know, I'm there. I'm like, when you cocked your gun, take him out. So I'm happy about that sort of comeuppance. And I like when a show puts me in that mindset of, you know, I want to take vengeance on them too. You know, personally, I feel like, you know, they've done something so horrific. I want to see their demise. And that's so quick in the story that I like that we don't draw that out. You know, they have the long-term villain in the story, but there's also these little short-term, you know, encounters that, and I wonder about the Clarks as well. They're the Native Americans that have that farm on the what will be a reservation in the future, but is this kind of, they've been granted this plot of land by, you know, benevolently by the Americans. So yeah, I do feel that tension as well. Not so much in the wife, but the husband is definitely kind of wacko. He talks to a doll. What is that about? But
that's the other part of the episode is, of course, when the Eli and Cornelia go to the homestead where these two farmers are, and John Clark is played by Gary Farmer, a character actor that I've seen in a lot of things. Very familiar face. Once you see him, he's one of those character actors you go, oh yeah, I've seen him before. And he is appropriately off the wall, whereas the wife, Kimberly Guerrero, who plays Katie, I'm not as familiar with her, but I found it a little jarring how perfect English she spoke. Like she didn't even have an accent. I thought they might have done something to color that. So that was an interesting choice. But there was something definitely off about that conversation at the table. Again, there's that subtext that's going on, and you're not quite sure where it's leading you. But it just made what could have been a pretty mundane scene more interesting. I believe. How about you, Jesse?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I felt it was weird, and I kept waiting for them to, and you're right. Gary Farmer is in Resident Alien playing a really, it's the comedy series that's on Sci-Fi that Alan Tudyk plays. Yeah. And he plays a diner owner and one of the adoptive fathers of one of the characters. He's really well done in it. And so there was this subtext, right? Like, I'm worried about them. So yeah, it was really well done. I know I keep saying this, but you can't feel comfortable as you're watching this series, right? Like there is always something that could go wrong and could be dangerous.
Yes.
And that you also don't know, I don't know what is the end game happy ending in this series, right? I don't know where we're going to go.
Okay, very cool. So another major subplot that's introduced is the cattle owner, Thomas Trafford, who's played by Tom Hughes. A good-looking guy, Karen? Yes? No?
Yes, very hot. I love that kind of floppy hair thing. That's
yeah. And he has some interesting interactions with the sheriff, played by another great character actor, Stephen Ray. I thought he was just amazingly fantastic as a sheriff.
Yeah, very blasé. If you don't pay me, I'm not going to come and help you. And also, I don't care. a lot of his thing was, I don't really care. They're paying me, but whatever. I liked his performance a lot. For the small scene we had, it really told us what he was about. And also Tom Hughes, who plays Trafford, it's so entitled the way he plays that. But again, super hot. I'm not usually into blondes either, but he's definitely up there. I know he's not a good person, but the actor, I can separate the actor from the part. You can tell already, and I'm just assuming that that's the person that she is hunting down. But he is, you'd get that sense of entitlement. They're out playing cricket in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't have to worry about things because he has his own people, and the fact that his flock was attacked. He can't imagine how that happened. I got my own little thing. You can't come and get me. I am safe from everything, because we can go out and recreate and not worry about things. But the fact that they attack him and he is just so, entitled is the word that comes to mind most often, is, he's so affronted that someone would dare to attack him. Why don't you pay attention to these people? Why don't you, keep your eye on them? Because I don't care. So that scene between the two of them, I thought was amazing.
Yeah,
Jesse,
I'm right there with you. I thought they were going to play baseball, right? Because baseball was the, I remember some scene where they were playing baseball in some movie, and the guy says, the number one sport in America will always be guns, right? Shooting. I can't remember what movie or series that's from, but it was very surprising to see him play cricket. I love the dialogue between him and the sheriff. I don't understand the mystery of what purpose would they butcher the cows and take the unborn calves. I don't understand that. That seems to be weird. And I do not, as far as I know, we don't have anything supernatural going on this one, but it felt very supernatural. Like what purpose is this? Is there something going on? So I do think that once again, we go back to Penn Jillette's statement, I don't want to go anywhere where my money doesn't make a difference. This rancher feels like he is isolated.
Yep.
I am rich. I make the rules. This is out here. The town depends on me, and therefore I am untouchable. And for you to come and someone to dare bother me is inconceivable, right?
Yeah.
You notice he brings up money as well. These cows are worth a lot of money.
Yes.
That is his thing.
Yes.
So
go ahead.
And I would say, and one of the tropes of Westerns is cattle ranchers and sheep ranchers or farmers. This is the idea. This is built for beef. We are cattle ranchers. We do not want farmers. We do not want sheep. We do not, want anything else. This should be, we got cattle, and that's all that this should be about.
Yeah. I think the thing with the calf, the baby's calves being killed is really in the direction of what Karen's talking about with entitlement. And to me, the show moment for that was the way he treated the ranch hand, the night watchman, how he literally beat the crap out of the guy. That shows his contempt for the common people. And I believe that feeling is reciprocated, and we see the aftermath of that. So, but that's open to interpretation. And the show leaves it that way for you to decide what that's all about.
Okay.
So that covers most of this episode. The only thing that I saved to the end was the night scenes between Cornelia and Eli under the stars. It was again one of those scenes where the dialogue has subtext and their discussions center around magic and a little bit of the afterlife. And if you really push it, you could sort of go into that "we are stardust" kind of theme that we've seen in other shows as well. So just really nice character moments that I thought were really well done with the two actors that have a lot of chemistry together with each other. Jesse.
Yeah, I agree. It is, once again, I love a series having room to breathe, yet not not going, okay, let's move this on. I don't understand this purpose. It was just, it really does give you that feeling of, and it is a beautiful shot. And you talked earlier about the environment, the setting is a character, that beautiful, I know it is a cliche, but for those of us living in a city where there is always lights, I remember the first time I went back to visit my mom in Louisiana, and I was driving back from my grandparents' dairy farm, and I was amazed that in the woods how dark it was, right? Because in Dallas, it's never dark. I mean, between street lights and building lights and car headlamps, even at 2 a.m, it isn't dark. But in in Moss Bluff, Louisiana, driving in to go to your mom's house, it is dark. It is dark outside. Yeah. And you can't see the stars from the city. And if you go out somewhere where you can without the light pollution and the either smog or just pollution, the sky is just beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. I grew up in a household, we went camping at least once a year. And when I say camping, I mean camping with tents and all that. So I long for those days where we would go out. They had these activities where we went. We went to Camp Big Trees, and there was a very active roster of things you could do with, not just on your own, but like a walk that was led by one of the staff there. And they used to take us out into the middle of a field, and they had a flashlight that you could see all the way up to the stars with this flashlight. And they would shine the light and show where all the constellations were. You could see everything. You could see not just the stars, but you could see that Milky Way kind of, that star field in back of it. And I felt like you could see forever. And that kind of feeling of smallness, but also the fact that you're part of something bigger. That really put me in that mind when I saw that scene where she's looking up at the stars. He is as well, I think, but she's hoping that her son is up there with his whole family, that, they're part of that bigness. And there's also, I also learned a lot about Native American lore. The fact that things were passed down, they never wrote anything down. They were passed down from father to son, from shaman to what do you call it?
Next shaman.
Yeah, but they're like, they're
Medicine
in
man.
their care. Yeah, it's just, who they're teaching to be the next shaman.
Right.
Their protege, I guess. So, they're all like taking these things and passing them on. And the fact that we probably couldn't do that,
No.
it would deteriorate. But their legends endure. They're still around. We know all of their lore, their mythology, because they were so good about knowing the gravity of the things they believed in, and the medicine they used, and the community, the sense of community, even when they were torn apart by all these people coming over and settling on their land, they still had that sense of community and knowledge that they kept and treasured. So seeing him kind of talk about the fact that they don't need to write anything down, they just know, it floored me. And I think it also, to her, she wanted to know, tell me, I want to know all these things too. I want to be part of that. And she really hungers for that mythology, for something to hold on to, where, she never believed that maybe her son was part of something bigger.
Right.
Because she has this sense of vengeance. He's gone. He's nowhere. I have to atone. I have to cause this person to atone for his sins. And I think while she still has that vengeance in mind, she's softening a little bit because she knows her son now is part of this whole afterlife-y sort of thing. And she's believing in what he says. And I really love that. Again, it's that getting across all of that stuff
without saying it.
Right, exactly. It's so good. And you talk about tropes, and I feel like that's kind of there's only one bedroom trope on the road trip.
Right.
We have to share a room.
Yes.
It's that forced proximity kind of thing where they have to be right around that fire, or else they're done for. It's that harsh. Things get really cold at night. It doesn't matter where you are. Back then, things got like really cold at night. So yeah, I just, those scenes, very intimate, but grand. It's hard to explain, but I don't know. I hope you guys understand.
A study in contrasts.
No, we do.
Yeah. I especially like when Cornelia said, "Boy, it's busy though up in the sky tonight." I thought that was a great subtext for what's going on in their lives at this particular moment in time as well. So, yeah, I love all those scenes, and we end up with the episode ending with what looks like a parting of the ways, as she feels compelled to bring the girl and the baby to catch up with the rest of the Mennonites, and Eli feels that he's done enough and he's going to go his way. And I thought the compass was a nice touch that he gave her that gift as a gift. Just a really great scene, parting scene. And then he sings that song, whatever that song meant, but it's left for you to interpret, but it felt like a heartfelt farewell. And I just thought that Jesse, the imagery in that scene was just fantastic, and I'm very curious to see what you guys think where the episode is going to go in the next installments.
Yeah, I can't think that our two leads are going to continue to be separate. So now that I'm wondering how they will be back, right? Like if we're continuing the romantic road comedy, with murder, there's got to be some reason why he comes back or she runs into him again. So yeah, I'm in. I really am looking forward to seeing how this series plays out. It's a really, I'm glad you picked it. This is not one I would have ended up watching, and I'm glad that we are getting to experience this together.
And that's a great point. Sorry, Karen, before you jump in, I just want to, because there's so much material out there in streaming, like Karen pulled out Devs, which I never even heard of. And this is really recent. Like this just premiered in November, but I've not heard a lot about it. But the problem is it's like in the rearview mirror now, and I don't think you're going to hear many people talk about it, but I really think that this series is a gem, and I hope that you guys are going to agree with me by the time we get to the end of it, but we'll see. Go ahead, Karen.
That's how I felt about Devs.
Yeah.
So I don't doubt that this is going to be a journey I'm glad to be on. I'm already glad to be watching it. So
Okay, that's good.
don't worry too much about it. Okay, I love the compass. That was great. It's like he was returning it home.
Yep.
You know, he was given it by someone English, American, whatever, and now he passes it along. He gives it back to where it belongs. And that chant at the end, I took it to mean it was kind of a blessing, like be safe on your journey. There's a lot of meanings to a Native American kind of chants, songs, and I think this one was a lot of different things. It was farewell, I hope we meet again kind of thing. You know, I hope you're safe on your journey. You know, I wish you well. It was all those kinds of things, and how touched she was. And she was just, you know, stuck there listening to the whole thing. And, you know, she had tears in her eyes at the end. And I really love that even though she didn't know exactly what he was saying, she understood. And just really, really cool. And I love that we're getting this kind of true Native American side of things. We're seeing a lot of the things that happen to them and their culture and the things they believe in, their mythology, all of that. I really, really love that.
Yeah, it in a certain way it had echoes to me of at the end of Dances with Wolves, when Kevin Costner's character rides away from the Indians for the last time, and his sort of like arch enemy that started out in the beginning movie, who became like his closest friend, is, you know, chanting whatever he's saying to him and saying goodbye to him, and that it's kind of that same vibe. I thought it was quite well done. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
All righty. Anything that wasn't discussed about these two episodes that you would like to touch upon, Karen?
No, I'm good. I love a good sweeping masterpiece, and I think this is one of those that I'm gonna feel like that's the vibe I get.
Okay, well, we'll be interested to see what you think at the end, because you are the romance reader in the crowd, and this to me is a very romantic story in the old sense fashion of the word, not the more modern take on it. Yeah,
right.
It makes me want to. By the way, you know, I have no practical need for a compass, but I feel like I really would like one of those. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing when I watched The Queen's Gambit. I was like, you know, I really need a good chess set in my house, right? Because you know,
you don't play chess, I'm guessing.
I know the rules, but I don't normally play chess at all. And you know, and so now that I feel like I really need a good compass, you know,
I have several. Do you want one?
Sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So that's where we sit right now. That was episode 1 and 2. We will, next time we're back, we'll talk about episodes 3 and 4, which are titled Vultures on the Line and The Wounded Wolf. So foreshadowing, perhaps, we'll see.
Right.
This is a short series, 6 episodes. So you know, next time we talk, we're more than halfway, and I'm going to be interesting to see how your thoughts have changed from now till the end of those 2 episodes. And with that, I hope you all out there enjoyed this, and it's time for us to tell everybody where they can find us. And Jesse, why don't you do your normal spiel?
Yes, so you can send us an email at jklb5 podcast@gmail.com. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. Please go to iTunes, rate and review the podcast. It will help other people find us. Karen?
I am at Eliveria on Twitter and other things, and my blog is aliesstuff.com.
Very cool. And you can find me on YouTube at Lose Reviews, where you'll find these episodes under the JKL Media playlist, as well as our Babylon 5 episode discussions. And I also have my interviews with writers that I do that are up there as well. So with all of that, I wish you all happy trails, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.